So Bodies, Bodies, Bodies has the body count, but is it a good horror movie? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm talking about Bodies, 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 which is a new A24 horror film that is coming to select theaters on August 5th, 2022, and then it's going to have a wider release on August 12th, 2022. It follows a group of friends who are sheltering during a hurricane, and then some scary, unsettling stuff happens, and we got to find out what is going on. And then we have to find out, is there a killer among them? Look, my hot take is, I think you should rent this. I was kind of between a pass or a rent. It is like a high pass or a low rent. But overall, look, I really like the setup. I like the cast and I like some of the ideas, but it's just not a really good horror movie. It wasn't scary. The resolution didn't feel good. And overall, I just wasn't that worried the entire time. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more of the film. A few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in this. If you don't want to know what happens, turn it off at the ending portion. I will keep it vague up until that point, but I will go into spoilers in the ending. So if you don't want to know what happens, turn it off then. So in Bodies, 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 you have 7 friends who all gather to shelter from this hurricane. There's this hurricane coming, so they all gather at David, who's played by Pete Davidson, his house, to weather out the storm. And while they're there, they start playing this game called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And what is Bodies, 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 you ask? Well, it's kind of like the old school, I don't know, I think it was like a spy game or like a murderer game. Essentially, everyone draws pieces of paper, and the person who has an X on it is the murderer. So they turn the lights off and everyone kind of goes around, and if you get tapped on the back by the murderer, then you have to play dead and you are out. And the whole idea is to try to figure out who the murderer is before they get everyone. So, simple enough game, right? Not a really great game to play during a horror movie, but you know what? If I was trying to kill some time, it's not the worst game in the world. But when they start playing, some actual bodies happen, and then they have to figure out, like, who is the actual murderer? Is that murderer the same as the Bodies, Bodies, Bodies murder? And what all is going on, and who's going to be next? So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I liked the cast, but specifically, I liked Lee Pace. I thought Lee Pace did a fantastic job. He was my favorite character in this kind of group. He was also kind of the more out there character, given that most of the other characters are supposed to be younger, and he is a little bit older. But I liked him a lot. Maybe that's because I connect with him because of our age. Any event, I liked Lee Pace. I thought he did a fantastic job. The rest of the cast does okay. Although I will say I didn't connect with a lot of those characters like I did with Lee Pace. Second thing I loved is the setup. Look, this is a great setup for a horror movie. You've got a bunch of friends all gathering together. You've got a what should be creepy game. You've got a storm and a power outage in a big house. It is the perfect setup for a horror movie. Unfortunately, the execution isn't really there, but the setup is really, really great. I really wish that they had done kind of more with the overall feel of this film. And the last thing I love is the music. It has like a nice, modern, techno-ish feel music that really does speak to kind of the younger appeal of this film. This film feels like it is trying to appeal to a younger horror audience, and I thought that the music did a really great job of pushing that forward and setting the stage. So things I didn't love as much. The first, it's slow. It is a slow movie. Like, you would expect a movie like this to ramp up and be exciting, but it is just a very slow slog once the initial setup happens. Once the game starts and once people start kind of being worried about what's going to happen, it just doesn't really get that exciting. I mean, the game itself is a relatively slow game, but I was expecting a ramp up. I was expecting something to kind of like get my blood flowing, and it just didn't have that in this film. The second thing I didn't love as much is the woke stuff. And it's not because that this film was trying to kind of like speak about woke culture or have like a woke message. I thought that it would be more kind of, I don't know, modern or millennial, whatever you want to call it, throughout the film. But all the like woke slang, all the woke terms, all that stuff only happened at the very end. I was hoping for kind of more of a journey throughout, just to kind of, showcase, youth culture, showcase things like that. And it felt like it was all tacked on at the end to try to get, some youth engagement, but just right at the end. It didn't feel like it was kind of intermixed throughout. It felt like it was just tacked on at the end, just to be like, hey, we're going to put this in the trailer so that people can see it, and maybe we'll get some extra traction that way. And the last thing I didn't love it. And look, this is kind of a death knell for a horror film. It wasn't that scary. Like, the film has this great setup. It has a really wonderful overall setting. And then I wasn't scared the entire time. And look, like, I'm a jumper. I like get scared at movies. There was nothing here that was really that unsettling. There was nothing here that really kind of caused me to get on edge. And that's not really a great thing when you have a horror movie called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So overall, it was a nice setup and an interesting idea, but the execution didn't happen, and it was just a disappointing horror movie. So that's why it is a high pass, low rent. You know, if you're really into this, check it out. There's enough here that you'll enjoy, but this is not a movie that you really have to rush out to see on opening weekend, or maybe even ever. So going into the ending, and look, there will be spoilers here. If you don't want to know what happens in this film, turn this off now. So the main characters in this film are Sophie and B, and they are in a relationship together. It's a kind of a new relationship. They've only been dating for about 6 months. But like I said, I think B is kind of the main character, I guess, but I just didn't really connect with her. We didn't get much of her backstory. We didn't get much about her. She was just kind of like the main character that the film chose. But she just almost didn't have a huge role in this film, which is weird for a main character. But in any event, those two are like the main couple. They go to David's house. David's played by Pete Davidson, where a bunch of their old friends have gathered to weather out the storm. Like I said, they start playing Bodies, 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 and then stuff happens. Look, the first person to go down during this Bodies, Bodies, Bodies game is Greg, played by Lee Pace. And I was very sad when Greg went down. I was very upset. But thankfully, it is all a fake. He actually was chosen in the game. He was like tapped by the murderer, so he was just faking it out. It looks very real because Lee Pace is a great actor, but he eventually wakes up and is like, "Ha, I got you all." But then the first real body happens. Then Pete Davidson's character, David, kind of staggers, outside holding his throat, and he falls over. His throat has been cut. He's dead. You're like, okay, now we have some real bodies. What happened? No one knows. So they start kind of exploring. They start trying to figure out, and everyone thinks, you know what? It must have been Greg. Greg is the outsider. Greg hasn't been here. And Greg and David had a little bit of tension earlier on. So they all confront Greg. And during the scuffle, B, who's the main character, like grabs a kettlebell and just like whacks him in the head. She thinks that he's going to do something. It's Lee Pace. He's not going to do anything. But she thinks he's going to. So she whacks him in the head. And then when he kind of tries to get up again, she whacks him again. So now Greg is also dead. We've got David and Greg all dead. And you're like, oh my gosh, like what is going to happen? So at this point, like everyone splits up. In a horror movie, never do that. It's never a good idea, but everyone kind of splits up. And then we have B kind of walking around the house at night, and she finds Emma on the ground underneath some stairs, and she is clearly dead. And so B like hyperventilates and starts screaming. Everyone comes around like, what happened here? And no one knows. You don't know what's happening, but there are some bodies coming up. It's a film called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. The body count is rising. So that means we had 3 people dead, 2 of them in very suspicious circumstances. So now, the group of friends turned on B. She's the outsider. She's the new person. Everyone else kind of knows each other. And they say, they essentially throw B out of the house. So B has to go out in the rain. She goes to her car. She cleans herself up because she had like I think she had a bloody shirt or something from finding Emma, or maybe from like caving in Greg's skull. I don't know. But in any event, she goes to her car, cleans up, and then, decides to come back. Really great idea when you have a bunch of people on edge and you're like, I'm just going to go right back. So she's going around the house and she sees someone. You can't really tell who because the lights are all out, but she sees someone like messing with a gun. And they're like, that's not good. That's not really a good thing to happen. So she goes to the doggy door to try to, I think, warn people. And then there she meets like everyone again. They basically just threw her out. She went out, cleaned herself up, and then came right back. So when they all get back together, B, I think, accuses Jordan of having a gun. And Jordan does have a gun, or gets a gun at some point. And, she's like, this is for protection, whatever. And during kind of the insults that happen after, Jordan shoots Alice in the leg. And then, they start kind of like going for the gun. And during the struggle, Jordan shoots Alice accidentally, I guess. And so Alice is now dead. So now you have 4 bodies and 3 alive. So B and Sophie kind of follow Jordan. Jordan runs away. She runs up the stairs. B and Sophie follow. And B then like fights Jordan, tackles her, and throws her over the railway to the stairs. Jordan falls, boom, Jordan's dead. So now essentially everyone's dead except for B and Sophie. So now it's just B and Sophie, and they still don't necessarily trust each other. They're a little on edge. They ask, like, did you kill David? No. Did you kill so-and-so? And then there was an allegation earlier that Sophie had sex with Jordan before. And so they're all kind of not trusting each other. They're all on edge. And eventually they end up by the pool arguing. And at this point, B has the gun. And she says, she tells Sophie, like, let me see your text. Because she wants to see, like, what happened. She wants to see if there was some other argument. She wants to figure out who the killer is. And Sophie throws her phone kind of far away. They struggle to get the phone. They finally get the phone, and Sophie looks and is like, this isn't my phone. Turns out it was David's phone. David, the person who owns the house, the first person to die, this is David's phone. B goes over to David, like opens his eyes and uses his like dead face to unlock his phone. And then we see like a TikTok video that was recorded by David. And earlier, Greg, who's played by Lee Pace, had opened a champagne bottle with a like Gurkha baklava kind of sword thing. It was really cool. David was jealous. So apparently David was trying this later with TikTok, and he was messing with the bottle, messing with the blade, and accidentally cut himself. He was like messing with it and cut his own throat. And that's what initially caused all this confusion. So David like cut his own throat. He died. He like keels over and dies, and that was the catalyst for all the rest of this. Remember, like after David's death, they killed Greg because they thought Greg killed David. And then we also find out a little bit earlier, sorry I didn't mention this, that Sophie and Emma were doing shrooms, and Emma was like tripping out, and she fell down the stairs and died. So then that was just kind of like an accident that happened, and that was the third death. And then we had Jordan and Alice fighting for the gun, and Alice was shot. And then we had B throw Jordan over the stairs because she thought she was the killer, and Jordan was dead. So all of this kind of snowballed from David's initial just mess up where he cut his own throat with a sword. Again, kind of a nice little twist. It just didn't feel that well done. It didn't feel that deserved. I wasn't like shocked when that happened. It just felt like, okay, so that's an interesting explanation. And then we see, I think it was David's brother come back. David's brother had admitted that he liked David's girlfriend earlier, and so they had thrown him out for doing that. And so he left, and I guess holed up somewhere else for the storm, but came back. And he comes back. When he gets back, all of a sudden B's phone just starts like blowing up because she is getting texts, and she's like, I have reception, because the reception was cut out during the storm. And that's it. That's the movie. That's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Like I said, it is not a great horror movie. It has some interesting ideas, but it just feels like it could have been executed a little bit better. I think it's a rental, but if you pass on it, I don't think you'll be that disappointed. So that is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. It's coming to theaters on August 5th, 2022, to select theaters, and then it's coming to wider theaters on August 12th, 2022. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.